Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy, and I want to talk about political speech from the perspective of sacrificing complexity in order to gain or maintain momentum, and how critical this is. All right, so 13 months, that's all we have left. Okay, we have 13 months to go time. And honestly, there's a good chance a lot of people are going to drop out on Super Tuesday. You know what? I want to try to get better at this. I want to tell you what this video is at the beginning of the video. All right. So specifically, what I want to talk about today is Vivek Ramaswamy reducing complexity when he talks about political issues and talking about them in a much simpler way so that people care. Because if you make a subject even remotely complex, people stop caring and people refuse to care. It's just, I think it's a reality of humanity. And I think a lot, Tim Scott is not going to go anywhere. He's not going to get elected. He's not going to be president. He's not going to win the 2024 U.S. presidential election because he just doesn't understand that people don't care about complexity. And he constantly talks about things. 7% corn yields. No, you ain't going to win like that, right? Like, build that wall. Simple. Simple, right? Drill, frack, burn coal. Simple, strong, direct, clear, right? You have to reduce complexity. All right. So basically, let me explain why I'm saying this. So I highly recommend to you that you start listening to Slate Political Gabfest. I've listened to it for about 16 or 17 years. It's incredible. I've listened to it as long as podcasts exists, almost. It was one of the first podcasts. It is one of the most successful and powerful and useful podcasts that exist. And there's three people on it: John Dickerson, Emily Bazelon, and David Plotz. John Dickerson is very smart and delightful. Emily Bazelon is very smart and delightful. But the heart of the show is David Plotz. And honestly, I'll tell you right now, he's not as smart as John Dickerson. He's not as smart as Emily Bazelon, in my opinion. But he's better than both of them at political punditry, right? And that's what all three of them do. And the reason why he's much better at political punditry than either one of them is he is able to say things strongly and clearly. And he's able to cut to the heart of the matter, and he's able to understand complex things and then communicate them in a simple way, right? Recently, he explained that, they were talking, and they were like, why doesn't anything stick to President Donald Trump? And they were like, President Donald Trump has a whole new set of problems, and this should do it, man. That's going to convince people not to vote for him, and now President Donald Trump's going to lose because he has another indictment. And David Plotz is like, that's not going to happen. And then he said very clearly, he's like, there is a rabbit warren of cases against President Donald Trump. And I was like, whoa, he's right. There is a rabbit warren of cases against Donald Trump. A rabbit warren of cases, right? And basically what he was saying is like, none of these cases against Donald Trump matter because people don't understand what they are. Right? And the reality is there's so many of them. They're so overlapped. They're so redundant. And none of them, and every single thing he's being accused for has already been done by his opponents. If not one opponent, then take an aggregate of his opponents. They've all done the same thing. So this rabbit warren of cases is so complicated, nobody cares, right? And it's very true. Donald Trump's indictment have not lost him a single voter. In fact, by every metric, it looks like it's gained him voters, right? And it makes his current voters more passionate every time he's indicted further, right? And so David Plotz was pointing out, he's like, hey, if you make these things complex, right, regular Americans are not going to care. And I think he's dead on right. Absolutely correct, right? And I'm going to give you my example, right? So I try to pay attention to the news, and I listen to Breaking Points every day. I listen to Peter Zeihan every day, and I listen to the Wall Street Journal's audio summary every day, right? And generally I can understand everything, but recently, right, Peter Zeinan is like, let me explain the Armenian-Azerbaijan war to you. They're at war, and you need to care about this, right? So he explains who the Armenian people are. I don't understand. He explains who the Azerbaijani people are. I don't understand. I don't understand where they are, how they're a distinct people, what is part of their culture, what do they stand for, what did they make, what have I seen that I liked that from the. I could not understand even who they are or where they live, right? From his explanation, right? So I Wikipedia it. I still don't get it, right? Like, how are you a distinct people? What is distinct about you that I can, what is your distinctor? I could not figure it out, right? I have a master's degree. Could not understand who the Armenians are and who the Azerbaijani people are and how they're distinct from the people around them, right? And what they've made that I really enjoy or that the world enjoys, right? It just, I couldn't, and then he's like, this is why they're at war. I could not understand it. I could not understand it, right? And and I care desperately. I care deeply about the Ukraine war, and I care deeply about the Israel war, right? And I just couldn't come to give the correct amount of sentiment to what's happening with the Armenian and the Azerbaijani people. They're human beings. I should care equally for them. But the complexity is a barrier I could not overcome. If I can't understand, I'm not going to give the correct amount of sentiment to this situation, right? And so it's absolutely critical that Vivek Ramaswamy understands this and never, ever goes over a complexity level 3 out of 5, right? Keep it at a 1. And that means keep it at a 1, keep it at a 2. And you're like, Scott, if you make it that simple, you're just going to be cutting off some really important nuances that really matter. No, shut it down. I don't want the extra information, right? Like, you have got to make it simple, or you have got to realize you're on your own. And maybe that's when maybe that's why the Azerbaijani and the Armenian people are in this situation. Maybe they continue to make their cultures complex and their situation complex so that they're alone in it. Because because the world cares about Ukraine. The world cares about Israel. It's all over, right? But when people start talking about the Azerbaijani people and the Armenian people and their conflict, people tune out quick, right? And so they need to find a spokesperson who is going to communicate who they are, where they are, how they're distinct, and why they're fighting. And if they do not, they are in it alone. The world will not get involved. No one's going to send them aid. No one's going to, make a difference in their specific situation, right? And that might, and actually, so if you're a political group, all you need to do to be left alone is just make your situation complex and never explain it simply, and you will keep everyone away. But for Vivek Ramaswamy, if it's a complexity 5 thing, you have got to talk about it at a complexity 2, and you've got to chop off, and I'm talking chop it off. You've got to chop off complexity parts so that it spins simply, directly, freely, and the momentum is maintained or the momentum is gained, right? Complexity is the enemy of the right amount of sentiment being applied to a people or being applied to a situation. You have got to keep it simple. Vivek Ramaswamy, every single complexity 5 issue you do not bring it to the American people, right? I got a master's degree, and if you start going into the complexity 4 and 5, there's a good chance I'm not going to follow. Period. Like, I'm not going to attach the right amount of sentiment. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. Vivek, make sure you pay attention to this, because you're going to lose people if you don't go down this road. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.